You're listening to the Creative Minds Smart Money Podcast. And today's episode is our final one in our series, our little series of CFO things that we really want to be looking at and fractional CFO things that we really want to focus on. So let's dive into all things benchmarking. Benchmarking is kind of like asking yourself, how do I measure up? So if you've ever looked at someone's post and saw that they had a 6-figure month and immediately thought, okay, am I doing something wrong? Benchmarking isn't about necessarily copying their success, but giving your numbers context so you know what's working and where to grow. And it can feel like a complicated process, but I'm going to break it down into something that's really manageable and easy to consume so that you understand what benchmarking actually is. Okay, we're talking real world benchmarks, not just internet fluff, so that we can build a business that's actually profitable for us. So we're not just going onto Threads and looking at someone that has amazing success and being like, okay, I'm going to copy what they did. We're talking about industry standard benchmarks. So when we ask ourselves what benchmarking is, the first thing that we want to talk about is, what does benchmarking actually mean? So it is not, again, comparing your business to random strangers on Instagram or Threads and being like, oh, hey, Jimmy Bob made $5,000 last month. I should have made $5,000 last month. That is not what benchmarking is. It is about measuring your key numbers, which again, key performance indicators that we're bringing over. I know you're starting to see this full picture against relevant standards, which is either industry averages or our own goals, which usually when we're talking about benchmarking in this context, because we are already measuring up against our own goals, we are benchmarking against industry averages. So it helps you to answer, is this normal? Am I undercharging? And it can also help you to answer, what should I focus on next? Okay. So what are some financial KPIs that are worth benchmarking? Again, you're hearing that word, KPIs, and these are things that we kind of have to bring into the picture and really, really understand. So these do apply almost across all creative businesses, similar to the KPI one, but these are ones that we want to benchmark. So again, we were looking last week at the net profit margin. So when we look at the net profit margin, we're benchmarking that across all of the industry. So for example, a good indicator of that is social media managers, for example. Let's say that the social media benchmark is a 60% net profit margin and you're at 40%. We want to analyze that. Why are you at 40% and not at 60%? Where are we not meeting the bar? And then same thing with owner's pay percentage. Again, these are all industry specific. So when we look at KPIs, a lot of the times when we're looking at our KPIs that we talked about in the last episode, those are against our personal goals, our goals. These are against our industry averages. Your cost of goods percentage, so the cost of producing your work, contractors, print costs, etc. What is going into your work, your operating expenses, percentage. And these are all percentages, just so you know. So cost of goods percentage, I mentioned, and operating expense percentage. So again, if we're looking at the social media manager and the average they spend is 20% on expenses and we're spending 50%, we're looking at that and saying, okay, why did we spend 50% on operating expenses last month? How can we make that better? Client retention rate is another good one that's looking at worth benchmarking. What is the churn rate of or the retention rate really of your clients based on other people in your industry? And then of course your average client value, again, based on other people in your industry. That's what we really want to look at, is based on how other people are performing, how are we performing? And again, this is not a competition. It is not you saying, okay, they're making $5,000. Why am I not making $5,000? Because you might not be there yet. Everyone's story is different, right? It is a idea for us to understand if we need to be doing things differently. We could be more successful than that person. We could be a little less successful than that person. If $5,000 a month is all you want to make and you're not reaching, or you've already reached that goal and that's not the industry standard, then that's not a problem. Again, this isn't us trying to be okay, you're not doing good enough. This is us trying to see where could we be doing better? And I want you to really understand that. So now that we've kind of talked about what benchmarking is, we want to talk about some industry benchmarks similar to what we did for KPIs to help you understand what you should be looking at. And this is just industry specific, industry benchmarks pulled off of industry benchmarking websites. There's websites that I can pull data off of to find out if you need to be doing things a little bit differently. So one of the first ones, again, is brand designers, copywriters, creative strategists, people in that kind of range. Your net profit margin is usually 30 to 50%. that means that you're doing really well. An indicator that you're doing strong, like you have a strong profit margin. So 30% obviously the low end, 50% is the high end. Your cost of goods is under 20% unless you have a lot of subcontracting going on. So that's your direct costs again, not necessarily your cost of goods, but like the direct costs. And then your average project value is usually about $2,500 to $10,000. So again, that's industry benchmarking. Revisions per project is about 2 to 3. If higher, there's likely a scope or communication issue. Maybe that's something you need to look at. And again, this is an industry standard, and effective hourly rates are about 100 to 200 plus if premium positioning. Now, of course, that's hourly rate. That's not something that's not what I tell you. I want to tell you to charge. You want to be pricing yourself based on your value, not on your hourly. I'm always someone who's about value-based pricing, and we can actually talk about value-based pricing if we want to. But another good industry that I work with a lot of is photographers and videographers. So again, your direct costs, travel, editing, props, things like that is about 15 to 30%. Your net profit margin is about 20 to 40. Average sale per client, depending on the niche of photography and videography, is about 1,500 to 5,000. Turnaround time is about 2 to 3 max for galleries and videos, which based on my own experience with my photographer, that's about what she had as well. That she's right in that industry benchmark. And then your upsell rate is about 20 to 40% of clients that purchase extras or albums. For product-based creatives who are maybe running a boutique, they have Etsy, they're makers, things like that. Your cost of goods percentage is about 30 to 45%. Net profit margin is about 10 to 20%. So that's after all your costs. At the end of the day, you're taking home about 10 to 20%. Inventory turnover. So this is a number you want to look at to see how fast your inventory is going out the door, which is usually 4 to 6 times per year, ideally. And that's a number, again, these are a lot of numbers, like high level numbers, but this is just stuff I'm trying to like help you understand, like, okay, this is the industry standard. Do you know these numbers yourself, right? Average order value is $40 to $150. And then shipping and packaging costs should not exceed 10 to 15% of revenue. If you have like a 20% shipping packaging cost, you have something that's going off somewhere. Like you need to figure out how to like analyze those costs a little bit better, or you need to up your prices, right? So that's where I'm saying, like, a lot of this, if you're looking at this and you are an Etsy maker, let's say, and you're listening to this episode right now and you're like, my shipping and packaging costs are like 20%. That's probably an indicator that you need to raise the prices on your products to cover more of that shipping cost, right? Then, of course, we have course creators, coaches, and digital educators. Profit margins are about 40 to 60% after ad spend and delivery team. Completion rate, 30 to 50% for courses. Obviously, the higher equals better retention. The conversion rate at launch is about 2 to 5%, which is the industry average. Refund rate under 10% is ideal. And then upsell / cross-sell rate is about 20 to 30%. And then as well, for social media managers, we have client retention, which is 6+ months is stronger. Shorter equals a higher churn or burnout. Cost of goods, subcontracting or scheduling tools like direct costs, again, 10 to 25%. Average monthly retainer is about 800 to 3,000, depending on platform volume and deliverables. Effective hourly rate is 75 to 150 plus for strategic social media managers. And so if you're above those, you're doing fantastic. Client ROI tracking, so benchmark engagement, growth, reach, and conversion to clients, not just likes. And then obviously client communication hours, so 2 to 4 hours per month max if more there's a boundary or scope issues. So again, those are all industry averages in those industries that you can kind of look at and really dig into to see how do I stack up? And if you don't stack up, don't think of it as like oh man, I'm doing terrible. Think of it as how do I improve my numbers so I can stack up? And again, don't think of it as like a negative. Think of it as a positive, okay? So if you're a new or unique niche, your own progress is your best benchmark. Okay, so if you're someone who feels like maybe you're not really there yet to benchmark against an industry, benchmark against yourself. What I want you to compare if you are very unique is this quarter versus last quarter. So look at your current quarter versus last quarter, kind of like what changed. Your average project profitability over time. So what is the average profitability there? And then your client value now versus what it was a year ago. So obviously benchmarking is not something you can do if you are just brand new. It's something you kind of do over time because growth is a goal. It's not uniformity. And then of course, when we benchmark, we want to do it without spiraling into this shame spiral. We don't want to be someone who's telling ourselves, okay, we're not good enough. We don't stack up. Don't compare revenue without comparing your expenses. Okay. So if you have, $5,000 in revenue and you have a 20% expense and maybe someone else has $10,000 in revenue and they have 50% of expenses. So ask when you're looking at this and you're like, okay, well, I'm comparing industry standards. Ask yourself, Do they have a team? Maybe they have a team and that's why their costs are different. Are they running exorbitant amounts of ads? What season are they in? So again, when you're thinking about the industry average, again, you're looking at that and asking yourselves these questions and saying, okay, so that's why I don't stack up because I'm not running ads. I don't have a team. I'm not in the same season that they are. They're in a growth season. Look at these numbers as inspiration, not imitation, not limitation. Look at them for inspiration and how you can grow your business. Because of course, this data is supposed to give you power to understand your business better, not to cause panic or anxiety or stress, which is why sometimes, having someone who's like me, who's a fractional CFO, look at that can also help you to not be stressed. Because if you're looking at these numbers and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing terrible, of course, you're going to look at that and think that in your head, but that's not the truth, right? Now, you're probably asking, okay, Samantha, great. You've given me numbers. You've told me about benchmarking. You've told me I shouldn't spiral, but like, what do I even do with it? Like, what's the point of it? You want to use benchmarking to raise your prices for one thing. So if you have a lot of projects and you're looking and you're seeing that someone else has an industry average that's higher, use it to raise your prices. Use it to cut costs. Maybe your average costs are higher than someone else's. Again, this is not saying you have to cut costs, but these are things you could use it to do. Shift your offer stack. Maybe you need to shift what you're offering so that it matches up a little bit more. And then change how you're delivering services if you're hitting your hourly limit, but not your profit. So as an example, if most social media managers are charging $1,500 and you're at $700 but working 20 hours a month, it's time to repackage and get yourself up to that $1,500 so that you can, maybe don't have to cut costs. Maybe you don't have to cut costs because you just need to raise prices. That's the power of benchmarking and how you can kind of utilize that. Okay, so benchmarking isn't about being behind. It's about getting aligned with what you want your business to do for you. If you would love to kind of get some assistance with benchmarking, please reach out to me. Again, send me a DM, send me an email. Let's chat about it. Maybe you want to book a discovery call. We can talk about that too. Otherwise, if you loved this episode and you found it really valuable, please leave a comment, like it, subscribe, share it on social media, tell your friends about it, get them to come listen to the podcast too, because we would love to hear more people, see more people listening to the podcast. And of course, if you want more topics like this or you have ideas for topics, fill out the form in the description box below and discuss whatever topics you want that have to do with finances. Maybe you're creative and you're like, I've been craving hearing about this, Samantha. Please help me understand it better. I would love to help you understand it better. Just tell me what you are kind of looking for. Otherwise, as always, I wish you the best week ever. We will see you next week. Farewell, fellow travelers.